classics and a bunch of other things. And I directed Peter's Capstone, which he ran as an independent study this semester. So a few words about Peter first, and then about what the capstone is, to set this up, and I'm going to turn it over to Peter. So Peter is especially dedicated as a student. He started this over the summer, worked on it all summer, and then we met once a week, every week, even when I tried to give him the week off. Thanks. He's genuinely interested, and he's genuinely excited about language and all of its little nuances. So I've really appreciated watching him grow as a scholar and as a person. What is language and literature's capstone? In the simplest sense, it is taking an artifact and reading that artifact through a lens in the language that you study. A little bit more detail, we ask students to choose a cultural artifact of some kind. Usually it's a text, but not always. We ask them to consider different ways to approach that text. And then after a while, they find a specific theoretical approach, a lens, that's appropriate for their particular text, and they use it to derive meaning that would otherwise have gone unnoticed. Classics is a little bit different from the other languages in that we are a time period and a geography. So we encompass more than just literature and culture, but also history, philosophy, anything else that you can imagine that applies to the Mediterranean world from 800 BC to 500, more or less. So Peter here has chosen a philosophical text as his artifact, Plato's Euthyphro, and has chosen a philosophical reading of another text, Plato's Cratias, as his lens. And we're fortunate to have a number of professors in the audience, Professor Hay, who's actually a philosophy professor, who is going to help ask Peter tough questions. So, I'm going to turn it over to Peter, and we're going to learn about youth.
Yes. What a guy. All right, so it seems like few people here have eaten cookies yet, but just by stepping in the room, you have condemned yourself. They are the pomegranates of this capstone underworld, and you are compelled now to stay and listen to and invited to ask questions about my slightly unhinged ravings on articles, noun endings, and conjunctive phrases. But they're good cookies, so eat them. Having stuttered since I could talk, words, their presentation and use have had a special interest to me. Words are our method of communicating the individualized contents of our minds to everyone else. But as anyone can tell you who have 40 slips on a regular basis, words aren't perfect messengers. To that end, I decided to study the connection between what a word is supposed to communicate and what it actually communicates. This question guided my efforts. Does the character of Socrates use grammar and word choice in particular ways that his interlocutors, people he's talking with, don't? And I found the answer is yes. Examined through the right lens, Socrates' grammar and word choice are starkly different from those of his interlocutors, and are different in ways that help us understand the dialogue better. In this presentation, I will summarize my process, lens, and the dialogue I analyzed, give an example from the dialogue of how this lens is applied, and provide some closing thoughts on what I found. What started this whole project was the Cratias. In this Platonic dialogue, Socrates is approached by Hermogenes and Cratylus to resolve an argument they were having on the nature of words. Hermogenes, whose viewpoint we now call extreme conventionalism, holds that words only have the meaning they are given by the community using them. In other words, the word cookie, for example, refers to a cookie because we as a community have decided it refers to a cookie. On the other end of the spectrum, Cratylus, in accordance with what is now called extreme naturalism, argues that words refer to something innately, regardless of how a community uses it. So a cookie would refer to a cookie innately, by definition, or it might be something entirely different, and we've been using it wrong this whole time, which would be unfortunate. Over the course of the dialogue, Socrates refutes both ends, showing them to be flawed in one way or another. However, he never gives his own view on the relationship between what a word is and what it refers to. And we as the audience are left in the dark. What's most interesting about this dialogue is that it brings to the surface Socrates' hidden assumptions about words and definitions. Even a cursory look at Plato's works as a whole display how important and how much Socrates is concerned with correctly understanding and defining words and concepts, especially those with social relevance. How can you and I talk about cookies in the first place if you don't first agree on what a cookie is? Socrates is concerned in a similar manner with concepts like justice, love, and holiness. Lynn Spellman's article, Naming and Knowing the Cradulus on Images, provides one solution to the Cradulus's absence of a satisfying conclusion. In her article, Spellman draws on David Kaplan to introduce two concepts, two categories of words, and introduce a third. A standard name is a word whose denotation is fixed on logical or linguistic grounds. A perfect example of this is a number like 9. 9 cannot refer to another number or concept by itself. It can only refer to the number that follows 8 and precedes 10. A vivid name is a word describing everything one believes to be true about a thing. The personalities we show in different situations are good examples of this. A child knows their mom as a mom, but not as a coworker or a wife. And yes, I'm ignoring Oedipus. Sometimes it's just better to ignore Oedipus. A super vivid name is a word that completely describes everything true about a thing. If people had true names like they do in some book series, it would fall into this realm. Platonic forms, expressed in human terms, would also fall in this area. As Spellman writes, in short, just as what is put into wood is the capacity to weave threads, as in the case of a weaving shuttle, so what is to be put into phonemes, that is the sounds of a word, is the capacity to provide understanding of things. More specifically, what is put into the matter which will become words are correct beliefs about Platonic forms. If Plato-Socrates is advocating for this, and it seems like he is, that his conclusion in the Cradulus is that of a synthesis between conventionalism and naturalism. That is, Socrates believes words should employ the sounds we already have in language, while also completely describing the eternal forms they refer to. Now, this is a tall order for human languages, and Spellman acknowledges this. But she believes Socrates is not simply describing a pie-in-the-sky ideal language, but how he endeavors to use the language he has. This idea that Socrates uses language in a specific, super vivid way, and his interlocutors fail to use it in that same way, opens the possibility that by examining how Socrates speaks in dialogues, we can draw more from the dialogues themselves. And in studying the Euthyphro, I found that Socrates does indeed attempt to use language in a super vivid way, while his interlocutors use language in a vivid manner. Put another way, Socrates is looking for the traits that make a cookie a true cookie, whereas his interlocutor is just thinking of various kinds of cookies. So now that I have this lens, it was time to test it out on something. The Platonic dialogue, the Euthyphro, seemed like an optimal choice. It's short, fairly typical, and has an especially obvious focus on definition. Plus, it shows how sassy Socrates can be, and that's always a bonus. In the dialogue, Socrates meets Euthyphro outside the Athenian judicial court. Euthyphro, a mantis, which is a Greek prophetic priest with direct access to the gods, is indicting his father for, and bear with me here, accidentally allowing a slave to die who had murdered another slave. Euthyphro claims that that is murder and that he is pious and holy to do so, to indict his father and hold him accountable. Pious in this context, by the way, of ancient Athens refers to that which is respectful to the gods and to one's family. And holy is that which is sanctioned by divine law. Now, for any of you remotely familiar with the social structure of ancient Athens, this is absolutely ridiculous. You never, ever brought your father to trial, let alone for an accident committed against a slave he owned. Yet there is just enough reasoning and just enough ethos from Euthyphro the Mantis to give us as the audience pause and think, maybe he is right to indict his father. Socrates, in any case, is shocked and asks Euthyphro to explain the concepts of ta eusebes and ta hosion, or the Platonic forms of the pious and the holy, by which he has justified such an action as prosecuting his own father. Euthyphro presents 5 definitions of ta hosion, or the holy, each of which Socrates shows to be contradictory or false in some manner or another. Euthyphro seems to ignore his now revealed lack of knowledge, though, because the dialogue ends with Euthyphro leading Socrates to indict his father, and Socrates having never found a good definition of the holy or the pious. But that's a sad and unhelpful ending, so let's use Spellman to dig a little deeper. To see if Plato-Socrates is, in fact, trying to use words in the super vivid sense Spellman describes, and whether this is a source of disagreement between Socrates and Euthyphro on the nature of hosion, I decided to pay special attention to the Greek words and phrases used in Euthyphro's 5 definitions, and Socrates' responses, and how Euthyphro's usage deviates from Socrates'. For reference, here are the basic summaries of the 5 definitions Euthyphro proposes. His first definition is that what he is doing is holy, to prosecute the one doing injustice. The second is that what the gods love is holy, and what the gods do not love is unholy. His third is that what all the gods love is holy, and what all the gods hate is unholy. His fourth is that the pious and holy part of the just is that which deals with care for the gods. And his fifth is that holy things are those which have pleased the gods, and the opposite of these are impious and destroy everything. As it turns out, I found this difference in word usage to be true for each of the 5 exchanges across the dialogue. As an illustration, I will show the process for one of the definitions, namely definition 5. So this is the Greek transcription and the translation summary of Euthyphro's 5th definition. It follows in the wake of Socrates' refutation of definition 4, and is initiated by Socrates asking for a new definition. Let me summarize here. Euthyphro is saying that holy things are those which please the gods, namely praying and sacrificing and preserving state and home, and that the opposite of these are impious and destroy everything. Now, this definition does not conform to what Socrates has been encouraging this whole dialogue. As I have stated before, Socrates has been pushing to find a super vivid understanding of toposion. But Euthyphro doesn't grasp this in Socrates' special word usage. The grammar of this misunderstanding works itself out into 4 primary issues. The first issue we come to is the word Euthyphro uses to refer to the holy, tahosia, or the holy things. This whole time, Socrates has used the phrase tohosia when referring to the concept of the holy, which is different from tahosia in a crucial way. Tohosion is a specific construction Socrates uses throughout the Platonic dialogues to refer to the Platonic form of a thing, what we normally translate in philosophy as the blank, such as the just or the holy. In this form, it is a singular noun and specifically describes a generalized concept. By contrast, tahosia is a plural substantive adjective best translated as the holy things. If we take word choice to be specific and intentional, as Stone suggests, it means Euthyphro is referring not to the form of the holy, but to specific instances characterized by holiness. This means Euthyphro puts the focus on specific instances instead of a generalized concept which Socrates seems to believe the holy is. The second issue we find in the word choice of Euthyphro's definition is the contrasting of hosia, or holy things, and asebe, or impious things. Looking at the sentence structure, Euthyphro intends these 2 words to be taken as opposites. But according to Socrates, they are not opposites. Across the entire dialogue, Socrates has never used hosia and asebe as though they were synonymous. Rather, he clearly delineates them via the conjunctive phrases kai and tekai. Both of these phrases connect 2 concepts together, but do not unite them. The and, it's like saying in English, I have cookies and cake. The and does not equate cookies and cake, but shows them to be present in a similar situation, the situation of me owning them. Socrates is concerned with both the holy and the pious, but never does he equate them. By contrast, Euthyphro seems to be combining them, as if he is saying cookies and cake are the same, which, as anyone knows, they're not. Socrates distinguishes between the 2 concepts because he is striving for super vivid word usage and definitions, while Euthyphro does not because he's focusing on his own viewpoint, which sees both concepts as more or less meaning the same thing. Euthyphro's third issue is hanging definition 5 on the holy being kekarismena tois theos, or what has pleased the gods, that is, what they love and enjoy. Previously, in response to definition 3, Socrates spends a significant portion of the dialogue explaining how the holy cannot be defined as what is loved by the gods. This is, in short, because what is loved by the gods is caused by the gods and is based and changes based on their whims. Things like Platonic form, which is a fundamental aspect of reality, cannot do. That is, an effect cannot be the same as a cause. But beyond that, kekarismena is a perfect tense plural participle. Through this, we see Euthyphro is referring once again to instances and not a generalized concept. So this is another illustration of Euthyphro's confusion of supervivid and vivid word usage. The fourth issue is, like the previous one, revealed in the phrase kekaris mena tois theos. Socrates pokes this a bit and uncovers that by please the gods, Euthyphro refers to things which benefit or provide necessary care for the gods. And as Socrates has agreed in definition 4, the gods don't need anything. Thus, the holy is expressed differently for the gods than for other things, i.e., its expression changes based on the circumstances. This is especially important because throughout the dialogue, Euthyphro assumes that because the gods did something, so can he. After his first definition, he states that because Zeus indicted and ultimately killed his father Cronos, Euthyphro was holy and pious to do the same to his father, which is a wonderful Father's Day, by the way. Euthyphro is taking one instance and extrapolating it to encompass another instance, disregarding the possibility that Zeus operates by different rules because he is a god. Euthyphro's focus, as the word choice indicates, is on the gods and the actions they take, not on a single concept. By contrast, Socrates seems to be insisting that one should first create a general concept and then determine the rightness of instances based on that concept. In conclusion, we see Spellman's proposal to be true that Plato-Socrates strives to use words in a super-vivid way in relation to the forms. His interlocutors, Euthyphro, by contrast, do not use words in this way. As a result, we see that the differences between participants in the dialogue reach into the grammatical realm, and that by observing this level, we can better understand Socrates' views. Through this lens, looking at the whole dialogue, we discover that Plato-Socrates believes the holy to be a generalized, uncaused, unchanging concept, underlying both holiness and unholiness, separate from the pious and expressed differently in different contexts. All that is a lot, and it suggests the usefulness of this Bomann lens in analyzing other Platonic dialogues. The grammar and word choice of aphoretic dialogues, for example, those are the ones that end without a clear definition, could be mined for insight into how Plato-Socrates perceives the concepts being discussed. We may even get a better understanding of the just, that overarching virtue Plato-Socrates seems to put so much stock in, and the fact that we may be able to learn more about literature that's been around for thousands of years makes me excited. I would like to thank my professors for encouragement in editing, especially Dr. Trevelyan, Dr. Parker, Dr. Schleter, and Dr. Hammerstrom. I'd like to thank my friends and family for unflagging support when I needed it, even when I didn't ask. I would like to thank God for keeping me going through thick packets of reading and thin levels of preparation, which is most of college. And I would like to thank all of you for coming. This project and this season of life in general have been challenging and satisfying. And while I am grateful not to have to read so many articles or write so many papers, I will miss being here. Thank you for coming and enjoy the cookies.
Peter and see if we can give him a hard time.
Do it. Yeah.
This use of grammar, like specifically, does it apply only to the confusion between super vivid definitions and more specific definitions, or are there other places where the grammar might change the intention of Plato's Socrates' questions?
So it's a good question. Essentially, I'm focusing on how the forms are affected by this lens, but boiling down Spellman's lens, it's that Socrates uses language in a very specific, exact way. And him being the protagonist of all the dialogues, that is the right way to do it. And so if you can see where he differentiates, where his exact word usage differentiates from his interlocutors, you can get more knowledge about the things being discussed. So it's not just super vivid and vivid. That's a more clear example, but it just is word usage in general. Okay. Thank you. Come on. There we go.
So I'll preface this by saying I've never studied classical philosophy, but I'm a professor of East Asian religion. So this may be a simple question for some folks, but it's one that is fascinating for me. About this, so for Socrates, there's an intention for usage of a particular type of language. What is gained by that? What is gained by a use of supervivid language over and above vivid language? What is the purpose of this effort? What is the good that results from Socrates' usage as opposed to conventional usage?
Right. Yeah. This advantage is an elimination of ambiguity. So the best example is I can find it again. Hosea versus Hosea. These both are from the same word. They're just that one's plural and that one's singular, and they're both neuter. Also very, very similar. But if they meant the same things, then we wouldn't have as exact an understanding of the holy. So what he's doing is he's taking this concept and putting it into a certain form to show that it means a certain thing in this context. So, for example, Posion is the generalized concept that underlies everything that is holy, or that can be characterized as holy. Whereas Hosea are specific instances that are characterized by this concept. And if you equate them, then you won't have that distinction. Does that make sense? A little bit?
It does. So if I could follow up,
Yeah.
So it's primarily a issue of speaking truth, or it's cognitive, it's communicative. There isn't a sense that because these words are truer and they point to the underlying nature of reality, that they have power in themselves to evoke, to control, to manifest.
No, although that would be cooler. I didn't get any indication of that.
Like, are they spells? Right? Next year's.
I am the holy. Okay.
So I would like to build on that question, because one of the things I started thinking about is, so philosophers are obsessed with definitions and distinctions, and we get this from Socrates as a paradigm. So it made me think about what are the reasons why he does this, right? And so you just mentioned removing ambiguity. We could also say, right, the clarifying of ideas, and right, the fixing of whatever the word is, so that we're not equivocating between meanings and things like that. But then I was thinking, what if there's actually more subversive purpose that's going on here? Because my recollection of the Youth Prose, I'm not really sharp on it right now. One of the points of the text is to critique the divine command theory of morality, right? And so then I'm like, whenever he's asking for definitions in a text, it seems like actually there's another agenda that's going on in the dialogue, that it's not really what is piety, but it's like this moral theory needs to be questioned and critiqued. So do you think that there is more to this idea of definitions, that it's actually leading to other kinds of questions, right? So that there is this clarification that's going on, but there might also be other kind of more subversive activities taking place.
Absolutely. I think because Socrates is sassy, he has to have underlying motives. There wasn't enough time in a 20-minute presentation to do everything that I wanted to with Euthyphro, or even 4 months over this entire project, because I kept finding these little bits where Socrates kind of pushes for a different understanding that isn't quite from this lens, and that Euthyphro doesn't pick up on, and that I wanted to talk about, isn't quite here, but definitely. The Euthyphro problem that's presented in definition 3 is still being used today, and I think that the Platonic dialogues as a whole are meant to ask, or meant to have the audience ask questions about it. So, definitely. Yeah.
In what ways is supervivid language maybe the same or not the same as Platonic forms, and if the use of super vivid language suggests a connection to Platonic forms, are we led to believe that the conclusion we're supposed to take from Euthyphro is that morality exists in higher forms outside of any divine cognition?
Yes. Conventional answer. Let me elaborate here. To answer the first question, a super vivid word usage is differentiated from the forms in that the forms are not words. The forms are concepts in a higher plane of reality from which we derive meaning based around them. The most common one, even though it's kind of inaccurate, is of a chair. There's a form of a chair, and every chair looks different and is different, but they all kind of, we know they're a chair because they agree in chairness to the concept of the chair. I can explain later. It's super fun, but kind of confusing. So that's the difference. Your second question was on whether or not this argues that there is some kind of absolute ethic, and I would say yes. In definition 3 particularly, but in this dialogue, Socrates argues on a subtler plane that the forms are unchanging and are above the gods. And so if there is a form of justice and a form of holiness, then those would be absolute and unchanging, and they would they would have, I guess, more authority than the commands of the gods, or the gods would base their commands on those eternal forms. That make sense?
In that sense, would then Socrates say that the gods were held to that standard? Because you said in your presentation that there was maybe some thought that the gods were held to a different standard than maybe man or humans were. So then, what would Socrates say about that if truly there was this higher, like the forms were above them?
I would say that yes. I think Socrates is arguing that every living thing is beholden to these forms, both mortal and immortal. But how they are beholden changes. So the dialogue ends with the sense that Euthyphro is not being holy or pious in indicting his father, but that Zeus was, which means that the familial relations between immortal things and mortal things are different, and that is accounted for in how you express the holy. The holy is a concept that underlies both relations, but they're expressed differently based on circumstances. Does that answer your question?
One more.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, this is a
No.
broad question. So, this is a question about what is a word. So it's language and literature of Capstone. Yeah. So, what is a word? If we're talking about words, right? So what I'm thinking of is in Sanskrit, for example, it is the phonetic. That is the primary. Right. The orthographic is secondary or even not important, or is even a violation. In Chinese, the orthographic is primary. But in Greek at this time, when you're talking about words, what's a word?
All right. So let me learn you a thing. This time period, as far as I understand it, is a transition from an oral culture into more of a written culture. And correct me if I'm wrong here. And in, I think, a couple of dialogues, Socrates talks about how speaking the words and having an actual spoken dialogue with somebody else is more important than reading it and trying to draw it. You'll get more understanding out of talking with somebody using vocal words than you will reading something and using a mental or written words. So a word in this case, I think, is more verbal and vocal, and any words that are written down are just are representations of it. So more in the realm of Sanskrit.
All right, excellent. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.